Today we're talking about Cursor AI, and it's the IDE that has been taking over the entire software engineering world. The reason why top engineers are shipping faster and winning right now is because they're using Cursor the right way. So you might have a great idea for your next app, but if you don't know how to talk to AI, you'll never get the results you actually want. Frankly, I kind of think this is an art. And I've studied hundreds of tweets and posts across the entire industry, and I noticed something. All engineers, they're basically using the same process. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking it all down. This is basically a proven approach to mastering Cursor. And by the end, you'll know how to use Cursor like the best engineers in the world. By the way, I'm Joel. My code runs in apps used by hundreds of millions globally, and generating code with AI, that's basically what I do all day. Alright, let's dive in. But before we jump into this Cursor breakdown, my car has been acting up and it's kind of throwing off my whole flow and energy. So let's go check this out and then we'll get back into the rest of the video. Alright, so today I'm having some challenges with my car. Seeing like a gearbox error warning. So yeah, I'm at the Porsche service center here in Kingston. So I'm gonna be trying to like get it fixed. So let me give you an idea of what's happening. So as you can see here, a bunch of different warnings. So I'm gonna let the technicians take a look. Yeah, one of the tough parts owning these luxury vehicles is once they start to give challenges, that's just it. But you know, I'm still thankful that the car is able to like give warnings when it's having challenges, because it could be a situation where it just starts to break and I don't even know that it's breaking. So, all right, the car is currently being fixed, so we can jump into talking about Cursor. So the first thing I want to talk about is planning, right? And I think the best way to like optimize your Cursor experience is to have a clear idea of your problem before you start prompting. The mechanism I use to go about doing that is I leverage, ChatGPT on my phone, and I'm able to just have back and forth conversations with AI about what I'm working on and kind of dive deep into my idea. And I think this works really well because I can leverage models like O1 and O3 Mini High. I think O3 Mini High is one of the best models for just like complex reasoning conversationally that you can access like on your phone. And O1 is a great requirements, project proposal-esque kind of model. Just the reasoning and the output from O1, I find really high quality when it comes to just long form written text. So I leverage both of those models on my device to talk back and forth about the problem before I bring that output into Cursor. So yes, it's very important to have these detailed discussions, and these discussions end up going into a PRD. If you already have an existing code base, then you can start conversations in Cursor alongside your code, alongside your project. The ultimate goal, though, as I just said, is all about PRDs. PRDs have been like the biggest wave in the space of AI. So the agentic wave started where we moved from editing a single file to having the agent work across multiple files by understanding the context of the code base. And the initial experience was not good. The experience has been drastically improved now, especially with the advent of like the PRD workflow. So once you have your product requirements document, this is basically the heart of your project, the heart of a particular feature set. You can throw everything into that. So we're talking about functional requirements, non-functional requirements, testing, all the different user flows. Whatever you have in that particular feature that you want built, you can put into your PRD, and the PRD helps you to have a more detailed breakdown and understanding of what you want AI to build. So having a PRD is great, but it doesn't stop there. To enhance the PRD experience, it's good to transform your PRD into a task list. And I've been generating task lists recently, and it's been like the most fun I've had with programming in the longest while, because I'm able to see a detailed breakdown of exactly what I want AI to create in front of my eyes before I let the agent loose. And I guess I'm saying let the agent loose because when I think about letting an agent loose, I think about Claude 3.7 Sonnet because it's such an eager model. But nowadays, I've been using like Gemini 2.5 Pro and Claude 3.7 Sonnet. Gemini 2.5 Pro has been a really great model to just generate PRDs that are like alongside the code base. So you can leverage either Gemini 2.5 Pro Max in Cursor or Claude 3.7 Sonnet Max. These are really, really amazing models. You know, Gemini 2.5 Pro has the million token context window, so it can ingest a lot of your code base, and Claude 3.7 Sonnet Max. So both of these models on the max setting, they have so much more tokens, so your context window can hold so much more. And one thing I love about these models, especially on max setting, yes, you know, you have to be a bit gracious towards Cursor and spend around 5 cents per request. But yeah, these models they throw a real punch once you start to use that max mode. So plan everything out, you know, step by step, generate these PRDs and task lists, and most importantly, I would say just leverage cursor rules. So that's one of the next things I want to talk about, like leveraging cursor rules alongside just planning capabilities is really important because the cursor rules enforces the plan. So without cursor rules, your agent is still going to just be working however it wants to work. And of course, the agent is monitoring like the patterns of the code base, but with cursor rules, you can just be sure that it's doing exactly what you want. When it comes down to planning, cursor rules have been interesting for me because I literally just create a cursor rule where I say, okay, look at this markdown file. It contains the plan, it contains a task list, and every single time the agent finishes implementing something, the agent should mark it as done. So that's the interesting thing about leveraging cursor rules. You can write a rule that will let the agent update a particular file as you go along. And yeah, I think that's really cool. Most recently in the open source space, I saw this repo, the Claude Task Master. A friend of mine shared it, and I've seen some others in the tech community sharing it as well. So this is like a separate CLI that helps to generate basically like PRDs, generate task lists. You generate your PRD first, you put this PRD into the Claude Task Master, and it generates the task list, and you can just run commands that check things off, expand tasks, you can update the task, all that stuff. So yeah, you can check that out. I'll definitely share that in the description below, and you can share any additional or follow-up questions in the comments about it. But yeah, in general, I think it's just really great to create workflows where AI is generating documentation and following along the workloads inside the documents, because what you're creating is historical, basically you're creating historical breadcrumbs that will enhance your code base and the ability of the AI to understand like the changes over time in a more like succinct way. These workflows, once you start to utilize cursor rules, it gets really fun because you can do things like create cursor rules for like change logs. So you can have snippets of changes being added to change logs that you can then create even workflows and tools that can reference Git tags and look at all the changes in a particular branch before generating a change log. So those are some interesting things you can do. So one of the interesting things I've done is I had created a cursor rule for like analytics. So you need to like track all of the features that you are putting inside your project, right? And you want to ensure that all the user flows, all the interactions that users are having, you're tracking them. I use Mixpanel to do my tracking, right? So what you can do is you can have a cursor rule that says, hey, once a feature has been implemented, I want you to generate an event. So you want to generate an event name. You want to add all of these event properties. You want to detect the current screen the feature is on. You want to look at the context of the feature and generate a bunch of events that can feed into Mixpanel, and Cursor is able to do that automatically. So yeah, I think we're really in an interesting time. And just to give you like a real experience that I've had with this feature set, I currently have a startup called Joyful. Joyful is an AI mental wellness platform that allows you to reflect and grow with AI. So you can talk about your feelings, you can challenge negative thoughts, and it leverages cognitive behavioral therapy to analyze your emotions. So you can definitely check it out. If you're working with Cursor and you're getting frustrated and the model is throwing you all over the place, you can pop out Joyful AI and talk to it about your feelings. That's what I do. That's one of the things that allows me to not be like overwhelmed with AI, because I leverage another AI that I created to like manage my emotions and my mental health. And it's been quite interesting. So let's jump into the example, right? I needed to add real-time voice capabilities to Joyful. So this is basically advanced voice mode as a wellness coach that you can talk to in real time. This is leveraging WebRTC and the real-time API that OpenAI has created. Peeps, when I tell you this API, it's very complex. There's a lot of client-side and server-side events. There's a lot to think about, such as turn detection, handling silences, voice activity detection. It's just a bunch of different things. And I wanted to ensure that the WebRTC layer was working fine before I put the customized chat experience, real-time talk, calling experience in my app on top of that. And what I was able to do from a planning standpoint was I basically gave the AI a prompt where I said, okay, as you're generating this implementation plan, I want you to create a mini demo, a core set of tasks that will allow you to leverage all of the core dependencies and the foundational APIs so that I can test all of the capabilities that will be required further in the plan. So you can test all of the capabilities that will be required in the plan. And that's really interesting, because one of the things that has happened to me, that's the reason why I'm careful when I try to one-shot projects, is if you just throw the agent on a task, especially like a 3.7 Sonnet, it can go ahead and it just starts doing a full build out of things. But if the core dependencies and foundational APIs are not in a position where they are stable and error-free and they have all the prerequisite functionalities that you want, you can run into a problem. So I had great success with this. The agent was able to build out like a tiny bare bones demo experience where I could connect to the real-time API and have a conversation with AI before it went on to like building out the extent of like the feature set that I wanted. So yeah, ensure that you kind of leverage these capabilities and it will be very fun. We just spoke about like PRDs and planning and cursor rules, and we did touch a bit on one-shotting requests. And I think like, hey, if you want to one-shot something, it's great. Like if you can just tell AI to build something out and it just does it, that's amazing. Like I love to utilize one-shot for features that are really simple. But one of the things I've realized is there has to be a balance. So once I see the agent struggling to actually one-shot a particular task, I break it down into simpler, like I get more granular with what I want because sometimes the agent really requires more context and just a deeper understanding before it can one-shot things. So we're seeing like a lot of demos of people one-shotting things. Do not feel overwhelmed or like that's the approach that you have to take. Or if you are trying to one-shot something and you're realizing that you're not getting the result that you want, it's actually fine, because the agent is basically a tool that is following along based on the particular project, framework, and just the context given. So experiences vary. All right, so another point I wanted to touch on that I've seen a lot of Cursor pros leveraging is @PR and @commit. And these are commands that you can use inside the Cursor chat window. The reason why I like commits like @PR is that I can bring in all of the context, basically everything that's within this branch. So all the changes within a current branch versus like the main branch can be brought into the context window for various operations. This is where things like Gemini 2.5 Pro Max, this is where those models shine, like these long context models, because you're able to generate like a PR description for all of your changes. You can generate change logs, as we have spoken about, and also testing instructions. So always leverage these kind of capabilities. There's also like @commit is very interesting, because you can pull the diff of all the changes since your last commit. So leveraging these features is really interesting. And I think we want to ensure that we always utilize these capabilities for code reviews, leveraging checkpoints to know where we are in the development process. And I leverage Git Kraken on the side as I'm utilizing a lot of these commits, a lot of these tools and processes, because I want to ensure that I have a really good view of my diff, of the changes taking place. I tend to like just erase the current set of working changes in my separate Git tool window in Git Kraken, instead of even relying on Cursor to do that, because it just allows me to work faster. Alongside that, you know, everyone knows about these things where you can add documents, so you can say like @docs, etc. You can tag folders. So always ensure that you are leveraging all of the capabilities of the chat window that allows you to pull in things for additional context. All right, let's talk about the chat experience and context management. And I think one of the coolest things about Cursor is just this ability to do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of context management. However, as an engineer, you still have to manage context really well. Start new chats every like 5 to 10 minutes, or if a conversation is getting long. The longer a conversation, it's the more the agent starts to lose track of what you're doing. So command end, start a new chat. And what's really interesting is if you start a new chat, you can press the @ symbol and reference the name of a previous chat. So it's really easy to get a summary of what you were discussing in the previous chat if you notice that the chat is getting long. Also, the longer the chat, the more premium requests. You know, Cursor is not free. We have to pay for these requests, and you can eat through them a lot quicker if the context is getting, like extremely large. So it's always good to monitor how long, the chat experience is getting, because that impacts the context window. What's interesting though is you can also summarize a chat. So once you summarize a chat, you can hit that. I think sometimes there's a button that pops up when a chat is getting long, where you can summarize the current chat and it automatically creates a new one for you. We have spoken a lot about, planning, referencing the right chats and creating new chats and a bunch of different things. Let's talk about selecting the right model. And this is where there are just a bunch of different camps. There are people who still love Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And, Claude 3.5 Sonnet was an amazing model. And I really think it really showcased to the industry that, coding was changed forever, basically. So, hands off to Anthropic. They did a really great job with that model. And Its successor, 3.7 Sonnet, is also an amazing model too. But as we have seen, it's very eager. So it's really quick to implement things like, I'll ask 3.7 Sonnet for a function and it gives me an entire system. I'll ask it a question and it starts writing code. I'll tell it not to write code and it still does it. So it's a very eager model. So I think a lot of people don't like to leverage it for writing code in the most recent times, especially since, drumroll, Google has finally done what Google has supposed to, like, what they needed to do from day one. Like, I expected Google to have like one of the best coding models, and I'm really happy that the Gemini series is here, Gemini 2.5 Pro in all its glory. So Gemini 2.5 Pro is like my preferred model for working right now. I think what I like about Gemini 2.5 Pro is it feels more like a teacher model. Like, it's there to teach you, to guide you, to work alongside you. Claude 3.7 Sonnet feels more like a preacher model. Like, it's just preaching at you. It's telling you, hey, this is the way that this should work and you should follow me because I have the answer, you know? That's so that's kind of like what I think in general. So 2.5 Pro is a great model to work with. And what I really like about it as well is the context window is great and it's not as eager to get things done. However, I've seen sometimes where it's a bit slow to actually build things. So it's like Claude 3.7 Sonnet is very eager. Then Gemini 2.5 Pro is like a bit more careful. So what's the middle ground? The middle ground is you just select which model is best for you. When it comes on to like the OpenAI, group of models, I still think O3 Mini High has a place. Like, I haven't really stumbled on any challenges that I needed it for in recent times. But when I have like a really, really tough problem, O3 Mini High has been like amazing at like figuring out like if something has like a lot of logic that really needs like complex reason, O3 Mini High has done well for me. DeepSeek R1 is still a model I have in my toolkit, but I haven't leveraged it since Gemini 2.5 Pro came out. So again, there are a bunch of different models and you should just select the model that works best for you, also at the right price point. Cursor has an auto mode where it auto selects the models. I like to select my own models depending on just the kind of work I'm doing, how much premium requests I want to leverage, if I want to pay out of pocket per request. So I think it's just up to every engineer to find the right kind of balance in terms of which model will work best for you. Let's talk about a power feature of Cursor, which is its ability to generate embeddings for the code base. A lot of Cursor's, understanding of your code base is because it indexes all of your code. So ensure that your code base is indexed. I think this is something that happens automatically, but I always tell people, go to Cursor settings and generate the index. Sometimes it pops up in the chat mode as well. Computing the index is just really amazing. What you can also do when it comes on to indexing is you can move external projects into your code base, leveraging workspaces. You can enable workspaces because Cursor is a VS Code fork, and you can reference external projects and you can recompute the index, and now you have access to that project. And this is a feature I really love. Like, sometimes I'll be on GitHub and I see a repository and I download it and I add it to the current workspace, do indexing, and immediately the project can reference that particular, folder for context. What's also interesting is sometimes I just pop open like a separate window. So I have my main project on this side, I pop open a separate window, and I'm able to talk to two projects at the same time. But in most recent times, like, there's been a lot of push for converting like external repositories to like basically a long text file that you can feed into the LLM. So there's this, I think it's like a standard called LLMs.txt, and a bunch of various providers out there allow you to point to a GitHub repository, or you can upload a file and it does this generation. There are two things I wanted to share with you. Like, there are two providers that I really like. There is this one where if you change the .com within your GitHub address to .gg, you immediately see your repository in a tool that allows you to convert it to a text file that has all of the code in like one file. Also, if you change GI to UI in the GitHub, so if you change that part of the URL, it triggers another tool as well. So that's really cool. Like, just being able to change a particular part of the URL and accessing these tools, I think is just a great developer experience, if you ask me. So yeah, leverage those things. I really love to, there's nothing cooler than like just bringing in context of like these external code bases, especially if it's like, you know, just larger code bases that you cannot manually like traverse. I was a senior engineer working on the WordPress team before I started my own startup. And I remember having to like navigate just thousands of lines of code daily. Yeah, so I had to navigate thousands of lines of code daily, and it really took a lot of work. And just imagine having to do that and to just review all of that code manually. It's something that sometimes caused me to be really stressed and worried, because I was in a position where I was making changes to code that was being deployed to 145 million websites globally. So now I'm able to leverage all of these tools to pull things into the context window, and I definitely, you know, want to say pull things into the context window using these tools, because software engineering involves multiple projects. You could be operating in a monorepo, which is what I choose for a lot of my projects, or you could have projects that are split by folder. So finding and leveraging these mechanisms to pull context in is always much easier than manually copying things file by file. Recently, Cursor released custom mode. So this is where you can create your own agent with different capabilities. So capabilities to do things like, you know, run commands. You can enable things like web search, and just a bunch of different tools and mechanisms. And I haven't created any custom modes as yet because I haven't really found the use case for it, but that's also a power feature to check out. As you start to utilize the agent, you can figure out, okay, do I want to have YOLO mode? Do I want my agent to just run commands, delete my operating system, or delete my entire project? Or do I want to have certain restrictions? Do I want all my agents to do web searches? And do I want them to use this model or that model? So leverage these custom modes, especially as you see where you have these customized, streamlined workflows that can benefit from the enhanced optimization. All right, so let's talk about costs and how to go about like determining how much you spend on Cursor. And I think for everyone it's different. My Cursor bill is currently around like $200 per month. And this is because I leverage a lot of Cursor's like max modes for like the models, especially since they released Claude 3.7 Sonnet Max and Gemini 2.5 Pro Max. Spending $200 to work faster is very important for me based on the amount of responsibilities I have. So I'm a startup founder where I'm building Joyful AI Journal. I'm also a consultant working on an enterprise WhatsApp AI platform. I'm also building out like other tiny tools to enhance my workflow. My wife is a real estate agent, so I will be building out like websites and mini apps to support her as well. So when I look at like all of the things that I have to build, if I can pay more money to have AI work more efficiently, it's like a no-brainer for me. But for some people, it's hard to spend more than $20 or $50 on Cursor, and that's fine. But what I would say is, don't feel guilty if you want to spend $200, even $500. I would want to say even $1,000. Like, if you have that money to spend, spend it. Because if you're gaining, if you're in a position where you are gaining, say 5x, 10x, 20x the value of the spend that you're making, then it's worth it. And that is what I've realized as we are moving further along in the AI wave. Like, I think these are the cheapest prices like that we're gonna have for AIs. Like, I think we're gonna be spending $500, $1,000, $5,000 per month on AI systems that code for us. So please be gracious with yourself. Experiment. Even if you spend some money and the agent doesn't give you the right answer, don't complain too much, because what you're doing is enhancing your ability to generate and output high quality code. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on, and it's not the least, it's like the most amazing thing to me, is leveraging voice tools with Cursor. I would want to say that I'm one of the original vibe coders because I started using SuperWhisper and like voice-enabled workflows over 2 years ago, and it has been like amazing. Like, leveraging voice to prompt AI models, I think is the top thing that I think AIs have enabled me to do personally, because I love to communicate and I love to talk through my problems. And sometimes when I'm typing, it's really hard to like get all of that context out to the model in an easy way. Also, I find that sometimes when I am working on a problem, I want to pace around my office a bit and really think through the problem. So I just turn my mic on and I just talk about the problem. And sometimes when I convert that text to a prompt, it's like 4 or 5 pages. Like, it would be like a 5-page document, because I was talking for like 10 or 15 minutes about what I was trying to work on. And then AI turns that into a great PRD and I'm able to implement or fix a particular change. I think also voice just enables you to rest and just kind of have a more relaxed experience. So I still utilize typing and I still leverage just not always talking, but voice. Anytime I'm feeling stressed out, I find that expressing my emotions while coding helps. Interestingly, like recently I was prompting AI and my housekeeper came into my office and was asking me if I was okay because she thought I was talking to myself. So that's how much I talk to AI. Like, voice is the main like approach that I take to coding. And I also leverage my standing desk as well. So it's much easier to like stand and talk and share that output. So yeah, check out these voice tools because a lot of pro users are leveraging voice, especially with vibe coding, and it can really go a far way in just allowing you to be more expressive and to really connect with the AI process. And I think leveraging voice is very important because voice is going to be one of the most like critical mediums for interfacing with AI. So remember in the video we were talking about my startup Joyful AI journal, and I need to do a migration from leveraging like an in-app notification system to leveraging like cloud functions. So I am gonna be sending a prompt to Gemini 2.5 Pro to actually start this migration for me, and we'll see how it goes. All right, here it goes. All right, so this is what I'm trying to get done right now, right? I want us to leverage Cloud Run. I am going to be showing you a bunch of functions that I have within the code base. And by looking at the functions within that folder, you can gather a bit of context on how I'm leveraging Cloud Functions. I want to leverage Cloud Run. So I want you to fetch the documentation of Cloud Run from the web, and you can just search the rest of the code base to see what it's been like to like handle push notifications. So we're in Expo, and I do have some code here about like managing tokens, like the push tokens. So can you just go ahead and do that search? I'm going to give you one particular like notification file that I think is helpful, but I want you to just like do the rest of this and just get some additional insights. So yeah, it's running, it's converting this to a prompt. And as you can see here, yeah, I can just go ahead and AI starts to gather documentation. It's looking at just a bunch of code here. And this is where we can go ahead and do something like generate a PRD, because I'm realizing that it's like gathering a bunch of information about the notification. So this is something that happens sometimes where it doesn't get the results, so I have to resume the request. But again, you can see here AI is searching the code base and it's gathering an understanding of just how things work. And once it has done this and it has this understanding, then it is really able to take a look at this and it can do something like generate like a PRD. So it has gathered some information. It is having a couple errors, but since it's just like a proof of concept, I want to showcase what this system can do. I can then go ahead and say, okay, no problem. So what you have shared so far is good, and you have an understanding of like the existing functions. Can you now go ahead and generate like a high-level PRD that would help me with this implementation? So I can share this prompt, and yeah, we can get a PRD like generated. And I feel like that's the really cool part. Like, of course, I could have written this PRD from scratch, but having AI do this is just really cool. So yes, I would love for you to put this PRD within the docs, and I want it as like an implementation plan. So can you generate a markdown file with this from like an implementations plan standpoint? Thanks. So, that's a really cool thing. And I really appreciate this kind of workflow because I think that's the reason why I love speech to text. I think leveraging speech to text is like amazing. And it's one of the most important things that you can do where you're just able to talk. And for me personally, it would have taken me a lot longer to like write this out, like to type it out. But I think there's so many nuances in terms of just how I converse with the model. I'm talking to it like it's a coworker, like it's a friend. And this really helps to, also make programming not feel as lonely because I'm able to like just interface with the model. All right. So it's working on generating the PRD, and here we go. So isn't this amazing? Like now we have like an entire implementation plan, and I could actually leverage this system to start the push notifications migration. So yeah, welcome to the age of AI. Welcome to utilizing voice to get AI systems working and really generating amazing code. We've been chatting a lot about Cursor. I do hope you have been enjoying the video so far. Let's go check out the car and see what the mechanics have to say. Okay, so I just got the car back. They said that it's having some wheel sensor issues. So yeah, these cars, they have a couple errors in one part and then it impacts a bunch of other systems. There's some other things to be handled with the car, but one step at a time. So yeah. Yeah, so here it is. About to drive home, so let's just give it a test now. Let's see Listen, the errors are gone, so when I start it, it should not show the errors. Only one error should be there, and it's the light. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Like, comment, share if you know others who would be interested in hearing more about, all of the advances that Cursor has to offer and just AI programming in general. Yeah, share a comment about like what you'd want me to talk about in future videos. I would be glad to engage in the comments. Looking forward to chatting in the next one. Peace.